Hi, this is Rodrigo from Frame Freak Studio, and this is the Creative Hustler Show. And today's guest is a student from Woodbury University. She's an independent artist, and she's pretty much like doing all her work and selling her art online. So she has a bit of experience when it comes to jumping out to be an independent artist and being able to live from it. So, welcome to this series, Haley Rene.
Hi.
So first of all, I would like to ask you about your story. How did you get started into art in general? Like, it was something that you were doing since you were a child, or was something that you pick up later?
Right. I mean, yeah, it is something I've always been doing since I was a kid. I actually thought I was going to get into costume designing. I originally applied to go to the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising, and I was there for a little bit. And I was super secure that I thought that's what I was going to be doing with my life. But as I stayed there, I sort of realized it wasn't fitting quite right with me. So I took the chance and I stopped going to that university. I had no idea what I was going to do next, but I knew I wanted to do something that had to do with art. And I'm fortunate enough that I have a family that's able to support me in that way while I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And so I spent a year just looking for what did I want to do, where do I want to go, and I came across Woodbury University. I'd never seen a school that offered an animation degree before. And I was very, very intrigued by that. So I applied there, and I'm currently going there. I'm hopefully about to finish up very soon. I'm very, very happy there. I mean, I've been able to cultivate a lot of very important skills.
And when it comes to the university, like I see that there is like this trend of some people who do not go to the university. I think I go more into that kind of group, like the ones who like to learn for themselves. And there is a like the other group of people who I see that they still find value into that. Uh, and I come from a country where there are not many options to study. Like the closest things for us to study art is like graphic design, and that's it.
Right.
So there is a lot of like questions in or beliefs of many people who think that they need to go through this in order to become an artist, something like that. How has been your experience in that area?
Well, I certainly think having that sort of guidance of a university or just anywhere that you can get it from someone who works in that field or getting together with friends who do that sort of thing, and just people who can help you better yourself. University has certainly been one of the biggest helps for me. But also a lot of art and reference books are very, very helpful, or just finding anywhere in your community that has a class, or just sitting in the park and drawing somebody walking by, or sitting in a coffee shop and watching somebody. Just going out and going into life is a very, very valuable tool to help you figure out, you know, if you want to be an artist, illustrator, what your style is, and to get better at that.
Awesome. And I see that you are like selling your art online as well.
Mm-hmm.
How has been your experience going through that? Now that we have like new technologies that where we can do much more and have more control over it.
Right. It's still very, very hard to get yourself noticed by large communities of people, and putting yourself out there is certainly a very nerve-wracking experience, but there are so many tools that make it so easy for you to do it by yourself now that it is very easy to just take that chance and, you know, do your own personal website, or sell on Etsy, or any other kind of website that allows you to have that sort of portal for producing things for yourself. I just feel like the hardest step is making yourself noticed and not being afraid to put yourself out there.
Great. I also see in your website that you have like an interest in stop motion animation. What has been about that technique that interests you the most?
I think it's the physicality of it. I really like working with my hands, and I really like, I'm fascinated by miniatures, but I really like working with my hand. I like being able to go in there and manipulate it, you know, myself, and to have a physical object in front of me that I'm working with.
Awesome. Also, are you exploring right now any specific techniques in stop motion animation or any other style of animation right now?
You know, I'm mostly pursuing stop motion in school. My school allows you to sort of branch off in any sort of direction that you would like to further yourself in animations, or 2D or 3D stop motion, experimental types. And I just like I found it more interesting learning about timing through stop motion. I feel like it's a good tool to learn just how difficult it is to time something through animation. But I'm not totally disinterested in 2D animation. I like mixing the two, actually. So I have, in that clip I think that you're viewing, I have a stop motion puppet, but its face has all two-dimensional animated features.
Yeah, I saw it. Also, in the university, I have interviewed some people in the past that have commented the experience about it, and some of them, they have told me that they have found more value on the people that they were surrounded with, others with the mentors that they have. Uh, what is it for you where you think you find the most value in it?
I definitely find a lot of value. I find a lot of value in challenging myself against my peers. We like to all see what one another is doing and learn from one another, try and help one another, better one another. But there are certainly a few teachers that have been very, very invaluable mentors to me. Their experience, their knowledge has been incredible.
I can imagine. Also, is there anything there in the university where that you think you couldn't get out there in any other way, like something? It, can you think of something specific where you think like, yes, definitely this is something that I will never have found outside this world?
Well, I remember it wasn't necessarily the university, but one of the things that drew me into looking into animation degrees was I found some art of books. There was like art of Tangled, art of Frozen, and a few other ones like that. And it hadn't occurred to me, you know, people, their job is to develop the look of these films through illustrations, through research, through all these different things. So learning more about what goes behind that sort of process has been very, very interesting. I actually never would have known much about stop motion, or may have never even developed an interest in it had I not gone to this university and tried those classes that they offered.
Nice. Also, do you know any portals or anything like that that people can use to learn similar skills in countries like mine where there are not many options?
I can't say I know any specific places, but for myself, actually, a big tool for finding information has been social media, going on, finding the artists that I like on Instagram or on Twitter. They tend to, you know, have their own little art tutorials, or they'll provide links to very good sources. A lot of what I've learned has actually come from art books, there's one really good book called Drawn to Life that's very, very useful. And they have one for human life, one for animal life. And then just the various illustration books from different artists that I admire. So people like Brittany Lee, Claire Keane, Liana He, Casey Robin, a few others.
Great. Also, on social media, I see that you're huge on Twitter and Instagram. Which one is your favorite and why?
Definitely Instagram. I mean, because I'm just more of a visual person. Even just seeing the images and being able to see like how did they create that form, what tools are they using, all the different colors, has been a lot more useful for me.
Great. On the other hand, now that we have talked about animation, I would like to go to illustration right now. I see that your style is like, I haven't seen a lot of a style like that, but it's like really unique. Like many people from our team really like it. What was your inspiration into going into this, or what was the process into developing this style of art that you have?
Well, I think some of it comes from I've always kind of had a hard time portraying motion in a still image, as that's just always kind of been a challenge of mine. So doing sort of a sketchier style kind of helps me figure out, you know, what's the best sort of motion I can put into this piece. I also figured out that I like mixing around different kinds of media. So I've got color pencil, marker, ink, glitter, and just seeing what, you know, what sort of forms can I get from all of these sort of meshing together. I know one artist that really kind of kickstarted that, all the color that I like to use, was Wayne Thiebaud. The way that he could have the still images of, you know, pretty little things like cakes and pies, but they still feel very alive because he's got all this color vibrating on the canvas.
Great. I will look for him later on. Also, what are your, like, the people that you follow, and what are like the top people that you aspire to?
Ooh, I think I listed a few earlier. I'm a big fan of Brittany Lee's work and of Liana He's work. They have such vibrant ways of working. Brittany Lee has this fascinating way of working with paper and doing sort of like paper collage illustrations. Who else? There's an artist I'm very interested in right now. Her name is Gigi Knight, and she works primarily with Copics, but she makes these very emotional, provocative pieces, but they're still so simple. They're very cute, and I'm just very fascinated by how she's able to use and manipulate color. I mentioned another artist named Casey Robin, and she has beautiful forms in her work.
Nice. Also, we found your work through the Woodbury University when we were into the city and exhibit last year. Do you go to events like this to network with people or to meet more art, or is something that you plan to do in the future?
For right now, I've just been going as an attendee, mostly because it's just I'm doing so many things right now. It's been hard to coordinate going independently. But I do plan to do hopefully more with my, through my university, this upcoming expo. Most of what I'm doing right now is going around researching, seeing what's available for me to put myself out there, seeing, again, what's available for me to visit, to possibly attend as an artist in the future instead of just as an observer.
Nice. Also, is there any other events that you would recommend to go in?
You know, I used to really like attending Anime Expo. It's a little too crowded for me right now, but they have a really great independent artists section. The Burbank Arts Festival is always a great one to go to. There's so many different artists, and a lot of them do also go to CTN. And then just every now and then a small local thing will pop up. Like it's kind of just going to whatever is around you, whatever you can glean anything from by attending.
Also, the last year, CTNX, like it was our first event of this kind that we went, and at the beginning was kind of a little bit overwhelming, and we were trying to go to everywhere and see everything. Of course, there was a bit of impossibility. Is there any tips that you can give for people when they go to these type of events?
Stay hydrated. But if they offer any sort of guide or map, I highly suggest looking through that first just to gather your bearings. And then just hit all the things that interest you. Don't be nervous about meeting someone you admire, because they're just people like you. They want to meet people like you. They want to help others develop more skills. Sometimes it could be pretty crowded. I know CTN this past year was very, very much more crowded than usual. I think it's outgrowing its venue, but just trying to stay calm in all the crowds is my biggest tip.
Yeah, definitely. That was a bit overwhelming on our side, being the first event that we went.
Right.
Also, what are your goals for the future? What is the thing that you have in mind achieving right now?
I mean, of course, the goal is always to be able to be independent on yourself, making your own art, making your own whatever you want to do, being in charge of yourself. But there are studio houses I've had an interest in, such as Stupid Buddies. I was once fortunate enough to tour one of their studios, and it seemed like a very, very nice work environment. Pix as well. They make an Amazon series called Tumbleleaf. That's the sets and the coloring is so beautiful, and I was also able to tour their facilities, and just different places like that that are stop motion houses. I'm primarily would be interested in working in stop motion houses, but I'm also just looking to further my independent work of my own independent animation projects, my own artwork, stuff like that.
So you have more like an entrepreneurial spirit, because I see there are many people, like a really huge number of people who like their biggest goal is like trying to get into Pixar, Disney. There are very few artists that I meet that their biggest dream, like at the end, is like being independent and putting their own rules. And I think usually the ones that do have like kind of this entrepreneurial spirit, do you feel that you have that in you since you were a kid?
Well, I'm certainly trying for that. I know I started aiming for, I started along with everyone else. I want to work at Disney. I want to work at Pixar. I want to be a part of that. But as I started learning more about the different fields that I could take this into, I broadened, looking into, you know, where can I use this? Can I just use this for myself, for other people working by myself? There are other studios that I could potentially work at. It doesn't have to be Disney, it doesn't have to be Pixar. Imagineering, though, has caught my attention. The designs that go into their parks and the hotels and stuff like that. And that's something I'm looking more into.
And how do you think the VR thing, like the virtual reality, is going to affect the stop motion? Because there was a moment where the 3D animation like did a lot of damage on stop motion, and then there came some artists who put it back alive, I think, and it's still. I think there's something about stop motion that it's always going to hit people at some point, and I don't think it's going to die, but I think that there are many opportunities that can be explored as well, bringing the virtual reality into like a stop motion 360 environment. What do you think about that?
I mean, it's certainly made a large comeback in the past 15, 20 years or so. I don't think it's going to die. I just think it's going to evolve. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, 20 or so years out from now, all the puppets are remotely animatronically adjusted. You know, you got a little knob that adjusts the wrist and the fingers and all that, and it's not going in with your hands anymore. I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. Experiencing stop motion in VR, I wouldn't be surprised by that at all either. I'm seeing it being used more in video games, actually, which that's kind of an interesting, like being able to play through a game that was shot in stop motion.
That would be really interesting. I was kind of a gamer, but my computer died, so I had to
no.
Yeah, but it's I kind of like put myself out of it just to avoid going, because I was like really into it, so I need to do more work. So that's why I haven't gotten a new computer. but definitely like a game in stop motion would be really great. Also, for people who want to follow a similar path, what do you think there uh, are the challenges for them that maybe they do not realize about that?
Well, I think it's something that most people do sort of realize, but maybe don't acknowledge sometimes, is, like I said a little earlier, being unafraid of putting yourself out there, even being sometimes a little, you know, forceful about it, but not intrusive about it. It's about finding that fine line between selling yourself, your personality, your work, and going for it, and not, you know, just being the basement dwelling artist who doesn't want to show their work to everyone else because they're afraid of being judged for it. The truth of it is, not everyone is going to like your work or your themes or what you draw, but you got to not be afraid to see those people or listen to those people or take suggestion, that sort of deal. I think taking critique has been the hardest but the most eye-opening thing that I've gone through.
Also, on the opening and showing your art, I know a lot of people who are artists who are like really hard introverts, and that becomes even harder for themselves. Do you know people like that as well? And if so, do you have any tip for this kind of people who are like really hard for them to go out and put themselves out?
I mean, I really started that way too, and the only way that I was able to push past that was to have truthful, honest people tell me what I could do better. Having those friends that won't just say, oh, that looks great. Having friends that will tell you, you know, I think this could be better, or I like this, but maybe you could try this. And even just starting with that truthful group of friends or family who will help you better yourself, I think is really, really important. And I think it's a good first step to getting you to get the courage to show more people and get more feedback without feeling so personal about it.
Nice. Also, I read some books about this. One is from Rene Brown. She has a amazing TED Talk on vulnerability, and her book is Daring Greatly. And another one is Marianne Williamson, the author of Eat, Pray, and Love. And she has another book called Big Magic on this topic. So if you haven't read them, I highly recommend to you and the audience that are watching this to read those books if you're struggling into pushing yourself out there. Because definitely what you said about like getting hard critique, when I started doing this show as well, like I received some hard critique, and on my side already, like that was my whole life, so I was able to push it like really easily because I was used to it. But definitely, I think that this is something that is hard for people who are like introverted. Also, many of these people who are introverted as well, I feel that they have like kind of this feeling that they are not that great, and that's why they don't want to push it. Like right now, we are in the talks with Damon Barr, for example, who was the sculptor who did the sculptures for Coraline, Kung Fu Panda, and all that, and he's a shy person for my surprise, and even he doesn't think like he's that great. And someone told me once that that was actually like a drive to become better and better and better and better.
Right.
How did you fought with this thing as well about feeling that you're not that good enough, or it was something that you didn't have to deal with?
I think that feeling's always going to be there to some degree. Some days you're going to have better days than others. You're going to have blocks. You're going to have days where you feel like it's just all flowing out of your pencil and you're doing great. But I do see it as a motivator, to not just think that you're the worst artist, but to always think you could do a little better isn't a bad thing. But also having that fear that no one else is going to like your art it's hard, and it's a very, very real feeling and a real fear, but you just never know if somebody's going to like or dislike your art unless you put it out there first. And, you know, art is highly, highly subjective. So, you know, something one person doesn't like, almost certainly somebody else will like. But again, it's just trying to acknowledge, I feel like it's very important to acknowledge that feeling first. And then once you acknowledge that feeling, you can more easily work through it or work past it.
Nice. Also, with your friends who also are artists, do you put yourself challenges, or it's not something that you do?
It's not really challenge so much as you look at each other's art and you help one another, or you gain a new technique, or something along those lines from one another. It's always, I'm fortunate enough that my graduating class were all very, very supportive of one another. There's not really a feeling of, I have to be better than this person, I have to beat out these people because we're going to go out and be fighting for jobs against each other. Because we know that once we go out past university and we're looking for those jobs, that sometimes we'll have to depend on one another for those jobs one day. So building those good relationships and being helpful and constructive to one another. That's been a very, very useful thing about having the fortune to go to a university that offers something like this. So it's never, sometimes you feel a little competitive, like, oh, yeah, they're doing so good, I got to do better than them. But it's always in good faith. It's always trying to better yourself, your friends, and so on.
Nice. Awesome. Is there any advice that you think we should talk about that we haven't talked about yet for the people who want to start their careers into art?
I guess my biggest advice is to just start. Some people always talk about, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Just start anywhere. Start by, the internet is a fantastic place to start for, if you don't have access to any sort of classes, university places that can help you in that respect. There's so many websites and books and just so much information on how to help you achieve all these different things. Don't wait.
Nice. Also, this is a question that I do to most people. If you wake up tomorrow, let's say, and pretty much you have to start from ground zero, you are in another universe, pretty much you have $500 in your pocket, nobody knows you, but you have all your knowledge right now. What would you do to get started again as an artist?
I suppose just what I've been doing is I'd see, what on this planet, in this place where I am, like, is available for me to start doing what I have been doing from here on Earth. How just immediately starting to look for, how can I keep doing this? What's available here for me to work with.
Great. Also, any tip for experimenting and finding your own style?
Oh, just like, I feel like there are some people who are afraid of slipping outside of guidelines. If in a class they set an assignment, there are sometimes kids who are afraid of slipping outside the boundaries when you shouldn't be. You should be saying, what can I do to go outside those boundaries? What can I do to maybe change it up a little while still, achieving what I want to achieve. Like I said before, I had always thought, I want to draw this thing, but I think it would look good with ink and colored pencil and markers and some gouache and some watercolor. And part of me was like, is that even allowed? Can I do that? Is that right? And I'm just like, yeah, that's right. You can do whatever, you can experiment, and no one ever has to see it if you don't want anyone to see it. I had a teacher who said you have 1,000 good or 1,000 bad drawings in you before you start getting better, and you have to get those 1,000 bad drawings out of you before you start remembering and cultivating and gathering techniques and skills and trying more things to integrate into that. So that kind of builds into the, don't wait, just start. Even if you start off and you think, I'm no good, this isn't gonna be good, just keep going for it and keep seeing what you can do.
Nice. Any last tip or advice for the audience?
Oh God, we said so much. Just what I've been saying. Keep going at it. Just keep going at it.
Thanks a lot for being here and giving us a little bit of your time. I know that you're pretty busy, so I'm really thankful that you have given us a bit of your time to share your knowledge to all the audience.
Thank you for inviting me.
This has been our last episode. Please share this with all your friends and like this, so we can start spreading the knowledge to all the world. See you next time.